what she's saying.
You got a lot on your plate. Thanks for everything you're doing.
1 minute.
More engaged.
I was encouraged to see
Yeah.
that in the
Yeah, and helping.
partners. Normally Farm Bureau, they have a big article
In a couple months when everything's just calmed down.
taking climate smart to heart.
We're gonna go back.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ooh, how do I buy tickets for
definitely appreciate it more.
the truck raffle?
What do you think about that?
You know, that was my first brand new vehicle. I bought a 1972
Are we ready?
pickup truck. Yeah.
Morning, everyone. We'll call the Agricultural Committee to order. The first thing on the agenda is we need approval of the minutes from February. No? What, you want to do roll? You don't put roll call. You gotta put roll call.
Allen,
Allen present.
Brown,
Here.
Frost,
Here.
Opie, Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez, Shepro, Kenyon.
Oh, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
Leonard, so moves.
Leonard moves.
On second.
Alan seconds. Is there discussion on this? We're ready to vote.
Brown,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Opie, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Kenyon.
The minutes are now approved. Is there anybody with online public comment? Okay, there is no public comment. So we'll hear from Steve Arnold from the Kane County Farm Bureau.
Good morning. For those members of the committee who are here this morning, I've distributed a March issue of our Kane County Farmer member publication. Getting back to normal slowly. One of the events that we did in February that's reported in that publication, we did our 20th annual shopping spree for local food pantries, and we're very appreciative of the fact that Senator Villa and Representative Hernandez participated in that event at the Jewel in Batavia. Between them, they raised about $3,000 or gathered about $3,000 in groceries for the Elbert and Countryside Food Pantry and the Marie Wilkinson Food Pantry in Aurora, respectively. Like many things during COVID, that was one of these activities that we put out there, not knowing whether or not we would have to rescind the invitation at the last minute, but we were able to proceed with that event. We did not do much publicity in advance to try to keep the crowd down. But again, it was our 20th year, and we were really happy to be able to do that, to raise some hunger awareness and to put some food on the shelves of some of our local food pantries. I've also given the committee members who are present this morning a flyer about our 15th Touch a Tractor event. Touch a Tractor is an open house and actually a fundraiser that the Farm Bureau does for its not-for-profit foundation every spring. We are planning that event for the 16th, 17th, and 18th of April. Depending on what restrictions are in place at that time, it may be reduced in scope or in scale. It may be an outdoor activity only. We may have to deny access to the building. But we are going ahead with promotion of that activity to our members through our April publication. So the flyer I have in front of you is very limited in terms of the information about what's going to be offered, because we realize that some of the activities or games that we traditionally do may have to be restricted because of COVID. But we do expect at very least to be able to have that farm equipment on hand at our office for that weekend, even if the program is little more than kind of a self-guided tour of antique and modern farm equipment. One of the other things that we are working on this month, we plan to launch a new website, and as part of that, we have what's been a very successful for us directory of local farms, local food producers who are members of our association who market their products directly to the public, along with the public farmers markets in the county. So we are in the process of updating that information both for online and print directories. So if any of you committee members or staff have suggestions for farms or markets that should be in that directory for the local community, we'd sure appreciate knowing about that.
Is that it?
That's all I have,
I'm
Mr.
gonna
Kenyon.
call attention to page 2 of your newspaper to look at a picture of his staff.
I'm sorry, it's been a long time since.
Page 2. Cut and paste.
Oh, yes, that's
Try to keep him on his toes.
that's our crack staff at the office. I guess I'd call that a superhero, office staff superhero poses. I'm not sure exactly what kind of crime you can fight with scissors or staplers or tape guns, but they appear prepared to do it.
Yeah. They like to have fun with their manager. Is there any questions for Steve?
Question for Mr. Arnold. This is Deborah.
Is that Deborah Allen?
Good morning. Mr. Arnold, the directory that you're talking about having to do with food producers, is that part of of the Farm Bureau's website, or is that a freestanding entity?
Actually, currently, it is both. It's a page on our website, kingcountyfarmbureau.com, but it also has a standalone URL at bountyofkane.org. So it can be found at both places currently. Whether we'll maintain that when we launch the new website, we're not sure, but I believe that we will. So it's actually findable at either location, kingcountyfarmbureau.com or bountyofkane.org.
What do you
Thank
do
you.
with the
Appreciate.
foundation money? What's the foundation do with their money?
Well, so the Farm Bureau has a not-for-profit foundation that was started in 1989. It's a charitable and educational foundation. The foundation sponsors most of the Farm Bureau's hunger relief efforts. So through programs like the shopping spree that we did last month for legislators, through a Harvest for All program where members donate a portion of their crops or income from the farm, or through programs. A couple of years ago, we did a 10,000 gallon challenge. The foundation sponsors all of those programs in regards to hunger relief, but its primary mission is really educational. And next week, our foundation will review applications for scholarships in 9 different categories and make scholarship awards to college-bound students, college students and college-bound students who are pursuing education for careers in some field of agriculture, farms or food science. The foundation also and we have put this word out. It supports activities of 4-H and FFA. 4-H through the University of Illinois Extension and FFA more directly through local FFA chapters. Last year, the Farm Bureau Foundation, in addition to making individual grants to local FFA chapters, made a larger grant to the Hinckley Big Rock FFA chapter of $20,000 towards a project that they are doing to build. Well, I'm not sure that they even had a name for it, but basically they're building a classroom for the FFA program in Hinckley. It's a freestanding building separated a little bit from the high school, but a facility where they can expand the program offerings of the agricultural sciences curriculum at Hinckley Big Rock High School.
See, the pork chop dinner's coming up, but it's different this year. It's too late to buy tickets, right? It's next weekend?
27.
I think, I believe Mark's right. I believe it's the 22nd, 7th, I mean, and that, yeah, I believe the 4-H has set a deadline of the 15th of this month for ticket sales.
But they've raised money for their own 4-H projects, for the kids. That's all it's for. All right, if there's no more questions for Mrs. Allen, we'll move on to the Matt Tinsley.
Yes, good morning. Today I'm happy to give a couple of updates on our farmer mini grant and survey program. We also have a resolution before the committee that will approve a third round of funding for the next group of applications that we received. We followed the committee's direction from the last meeting in which you provided the consensus to pursue a third round, and we were happy to get 7 new additional applications for that mini grant and survey program. So you can go next. Just to summarize the progress so far, so we started the first round and we received 6 survey and mini grant applications. And we knew that there were certainly a lot more farmers that we hadn't reached yet, so we wanted to continue our outreach, and we kind of stepped up those efforts during the second round. And so we were able to receive 12 additional survey and mini grant applications, as well as 2 surveys that just didn't include the grant applications. And then again, with the third round, we just finished receiving 7 additional applications. So in total, we have 25 mini grant applications submitted, as well as 27 surveys. So really, compared to any other survey and outreach that we've done, this is probably one of the more successful response rates that we've gotten from the farmers that we've tried to reach. And again, the first and second rounds have been approved by the county board to receive $1,000 grants. And so the resolution today is going to consider options for funding the third round of grantees. So you can move ahead. And so now I'm just going to go through and provide a synopsis of the farmers that submitted their applications under round 3. I think you'll see that it really represents a diverse and the unique cross-section of farmers in King County. So it was really interesting and exciting to see that that variety in the responses that we received again. So we'll go through those now. So the first was Kleins Farm and Market, and obviously they've been operating in Northern Illinois for quite a while. They've been operating for 50 years. They have their primary farm location is in Burlington. They also have retail locations in Elgin and Udina. And the farm business started selling produce back in 1966 when Randy and Judy Klein started selling at a couple of roadside market stands in Elgin. So they've got a pretty extensive history. So you can go to the next. Honey Trails is a newer operation. This is an apiary that operates in Wayne, and currently they have about 100 hives that they operate, and they have locations in both Kane County and DuPage. They're able to harvest the honey and beeswax for a variety of products, including skincare products, handmade candles. So they have in addition to the honey, they have a variety of other value-added items. And their business is operated by Chris and Bernadette Saad. So we're happy to have their application. Go to the next. Spring Bluff Nursery has been, the business has been operating since 1979, but the farm operation has been a working family farm for 6 generations. So they've been operating for over 160 years. And they got their start as a livestock farm. They eventually transitioned to selling chicken eggs, but really the bulk of their business right now is a tree nursery. So that's been their primary source of revenue. But they've also expanded more recently to adopt a CSA program, and they also have a you-pick vegetable garden where people can come onto their farm and they can pick their own produce for themselves and their families. And the next, Saracen Farms, I'm sure many are familiar. This is a farm that is also an agricultural and a natural preserve. This was the first site to receive the Protected Agriculture and Limited Development Land Use designation under the 2040 plan. So it's really, it's a unique site. It's essentially a planned agricultural community. And most of their agricultural activity is growing organic horse hay. But they have recently set aside a 5-acre demonstration garden, and they use that to grow specialty vegetables and fruits to test out different heritage and heirloom varieties. And they're currently selling this produce through the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce Farmers Market during the summer. So this is something that we're excited to see, and we hope they continue to expand that. And next. Bergman Farms is predominantly a livestock operation. So they have a variety of meats and eggs, including lamb, chicken, duck, beef, pork, and they operate out in the Maple Park area. They predominantly sell direct to consumer. I tried to do a little bit of research, but I didn't quite find out if they have any retail distribution outlets, but we know they do a lot of direct to consumer.
They go to
and-
Batavia Farmers Market
Oh, okay.
for a long time.
Gotcha. And then you can go to the next. Red Flower Organics is an organic farm that's, again, another newer operation. They started in 2016. In addition to being certified organic by USDA, they also hold a certification from a group called the Real Organic Project. And from what research I was able to do, they supposedly have a higher standard of certification than USDA. So they really pride themselves on having a sustainable operation and organic production across all of their different lines of crops. And you can go to the next. And then lastly, we have Bluff City Gardens, which is really more of a true urban farm operating in Elgin. And so they offer a a variety of vegetables, herbs, flowers. They have some value-added fermented foods, and you can see them in this lower left picture. They have a farm. They're at the Elgin Farmers Market with their farm stand there, and I believe they're a newer operation as well. But again, I think all these farms really represent a unique and a lot of variety in Kane County's farms. So really happy to get this response from them. So if you move on to the next. So in terms of the resolution that's before the committee, we wanted to provide an option. So the first option for awarding grants would be in keeping with the first two rounds that have been approved. So we would proceed with using the Fund 400 Economic Development to award $1,000 grants to each of the 7 farmers. The second option, we would leave it to the committee and the county board to consider an alternate amount that you see fit. But as in terms of the staff recommendation, we're recommending option A just to remain consistent with the awards that have been made through rounds 1 and 2. And then on the last slide, just to kind of summarize where we're at and moving forward with next steps, we are in the process of having the round 1 and 2 grantees registered as vendors with the county so they can receive their payment. Many of them have already submitted their invoices, so those are being processed so they can receive their funding. And then pending the committee's recommendation, we will notify the round 3 applicants of their status and let them know that any final award is going to be pending the county board approval. And then moving toward the end of this program, we're going to be asking each of the farmers to provide a written description of how they were able to use their grants. So we really have a sense of what the impact of this program was. And so that's going to, obviously help us with reporting purposes to our funder. But it's really going to provide really a wealth of information that's going to help support additional programs and resources going forward. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I see no questions here. Debbie, can we count on you for a question?
If you want one, I was just
I'm
prepared
just
to move.
kidding you, Deb.
I'm prepared to move the resolution along.
When we get to new business. And then the next item is, sorry, Matt, you just do such a good job. They don't need to ask anything.
That's all right. My feelings aren't hurt.
Uh-oh. Yes?
I just want to add my gratitude to, it's my hot mic. My gratitude to our team for making the extra outreach phone calls. I think you can see the evidence and just how that works with our local farmers. I also want to thank the local farmers because they're very, very busy people. The people we talk to, are trying to scramble to get their spring season going and everything. And it truly, we're very grateful that we had the grant money and some additional monies in Economic Development Fund to give these grants out to the farms to help them overcome some of the special challenges with dealing with COVID-19. But we're even more grateful for the information that we're getting back. I mean, these a total of 27 surveys and information, and then the reports back are really going to help us to continue the momentum and continue to increase our local food growing community in Kane County. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the work that you guys do, your team. Farmland protection. Janice Hill.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
And yes, and to thank you, Matt, for that beautiful presentation. It gives us all a taste too of what's to come and when the nice weather comes and with spring planting. And I did take a look, and Growing for Cane, the ordinance that authorized us to move into this direction of looking at local foods, and was approved in August of 2013. And that's 8 years ago. Pretty soon we'll be celebrating an 8-year anniversary of the companion program to the Kane County Farmland Protection Program. So just to give you an idea of how long we've been doing this local foods work already, has been 8 years, which is amazing. And 20 years in April for our anniversary for the Kane County Farmland Protection Program. So I thank and congratulate the Agriculture Committee and the members of the county board for approving this groundbreaking program, which you can see the benefits that it's yielded in local foods and land protection. And of course, the staff, all of the staff that have worked tirelessly on this, as well as, of course, the farmers, because without the farmers and the farm landowners, we wouldn't have this beautiful, wonderful program. Next slide. Okay, and the stage was set at the time the program was created, and it continues to be set, because the required components to be able to do this are a program where a county or an entity is managing water and water resources and evaluating those. You must have prime soils, and you have to have willing landowners, because it's a voluntary program. And you have to have a county board commitment, and you must have federal investment in order to be able to have these matching dollars that come from the federal government. And every year we have to demonstrate this. In fact, right now the staff is preparing our annual application for federal funds, and we have to show this documentation. So you can see these maps that we have here that we've had over the years, our prime farmland soils map, and you can see how much of the county contains these wonderful prime soils and soils of statewide significance. And then you have the overlay of our protected farms right now outlined in the black outline over those, and just all of them have these wonderful soils. And then when you look to the map at the right, we have our Aquifer Sensitivity Map. So we know that many of our areas, we have significant water resources that need protection, and that's been on our radar for quite some time. Next slide. And so already the map to the right is out of date, but because we are actually working on this as we speak, Tim Mesher, our GIS planner and mapper, is working on updating this as we prepare our submittal for Monday's deadline for federal funding. But I wanted to use this map to show you just how quickly we work to get these updated. We have new farms that we're proposing for funding. We actually have 3 that are under review by the federal staff for funding that have been approved, but they're in various levels of review from the last couple of years, and 1 that we're submitting for this year, for a total of 360 acres that are under review by the federal government. We hope to close in the next couple years, depending on how long the federal government takes. Now, they've been working hard to improve the speed of their review and approval, so we're hoping to see that. Additionally, you may remember that we have received the RCPP funding, so we'll be able to double our efforts in terms of more farms being approved. And so we have representation in those 4 farms from Caneville Township, Virgil, and Campton. And so we're really able to spread out a little bit and have more farms closed throughout the county. And you can see the total financial commitment, which is increased now over $31 million. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, because this would never have been able to be accomplished without the Kane County Board's commitment to farmland protection, protecting these fine soils and these farms and the match that we've received from the federal government. Next slide. But where are we today? We know that these farm soils are critical in order to create these crops, but there has been, if you followed anything in the press, you'll know that there is an explosion of interest in this voluntary carbon market. And farmers have been placed at the front line of this. And they're being approached by carbon markets saying, you know, you can help address the greenhouse gas problem that we have in global warming in our world by sequestering carbon, and we will pay you for that. And so this brings a whole another level of interest and possible funding to the picture, and particularly to holders of farmland protection easements, because that land will be perpetually held in permanent agriculture. So it does create a very, very interesting option for farmers. It has been the topic of every educational session that I've attended in the last 2 months. There's a lot to learn. There have been some very, very broad statements like the one I have here: the solution to global warming is right beneath our feet. That's a very, very broad statement. That's a lot of pressure on farmers, I believe. Then you have other statements that are more cautionary, like farmers, experts have concern about fairness and logistics. You know, lots of the practices that farmers are required to do to be able to receive a carbon payment are things that farmers have been doing already, cover cropping and some of these other things. In many of these situations, they wouldn't be paid for that if they'd been at the forefront of doing this. So that's where that issue of fairness is coming in, because some of those farmers that have been at the forefront would not be eligible to receive credit for the work that they've done already. So there's lots to learn about this. And before Kane County attaches any commitment to any one program with our easements, we really want to spend some time investigating this. So that's one of the things I've been doing in the last couple of months, trying to learn what's happening here in this very, very broad market. What we do know is that the federal government will be requiring some level of connection between the carbon markets and soil sequestration and the funding that they give. What that connection is going to be, we don't know exactly, but we do know that that's coming. Next slide. Thank you. So moving forward, when we look at our farmland protection program, we do know a few things. We know with our regional conservation planning partnership program that farmers will be asked to consider what types of conservation practices will be happening on their farm and documenting that as part of their easement. And so that list there that you see are some of the practices that are standardized as part of NRCS. They're standardized and coded. And so, for example, if you look, you'll see cover cropping is one, field borders is another, pollinator habitat. Not every practice is applied to every farm, but they are listed and coded through NRCS. And each farm will have a farm plan, and the farmer and the NRCS staff will develop a plan to decide what will happen on that plan. And the connection with soil health and the outcome of carbon sequestration is there. So my question then is, shouldn't the farmer, as well as the community, be getting some level of credit for this, especially since we are a program and we have an interest in this. Of course, certainly any farmer right now can go ahead and make that kind of connection with the private voluntary carbon market if he chooses. That's already happening right now. But as a program, shouldn't we be getting some level of credit for good work happening? But in order to do that, we need to have a nice baseline of where we are right now in order to get credit and where those individual fields are. There's a lot of testing that needs to happen for that. And you may be familiar with some of that at the water level because Jody has been here at the committee talking about water sampling that she and her staff are doing contractually in cooperation with our farmland protection program. So that's one level of that. Next slide. But what things should we test for, and what things should we measure, and how should we connect that with farmland protection? There's lots of things to think about. And then what should we measure? Economic improvement for the farmer, and what's the cost of implementing these practices too? That's a big question. And then what financial incentives are there for the farmer? There are some, but are there enough? Public incentives, the federal programs offer some, the state offers some, there's some private ones. How do you find out where they are and track them down and bring them in and bring them all together? It's more than a notion. I've started assembling the list, but there's quite a bit there. And so instead of leaving that in the hands of a farmer and saying, that's your responsibility on your own, and then you report that back in order to get your easement, I think it may be better to look at a possible pilot project for King County with our easements combined. We like to do pilot projects here before setting requirements or suggested requirements. It's much, much better to test things out before settling in on requirements. So that's what I'm looking for funding right now to do, and looking at funding to start to see what might work, what packages might work with our upcoming farms. We know we're going to be required to do this, so we're thinking maybe we should just get in front of that requirement and look at what will work best for Kane County farms instead of having to fall in line with a larger requirement the federal government would require. Let's figure out what will be best for us. Luckily, we don't have to look at those measurements and estimation tools and create those all on our own. Many of them are already set for us. Of course, we already have the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. That's the report on the left. That's been there for our standards already set. Recently released is the American Farmland Trust Report, which is the one on the right, their outcomes estimation tool. I sat in on that webinar in January, I believe it was. And if you go to the next slide, this is what ultimately their report summary looked like. I know it's probably hard to read, but basically they took a lot of the tools that are out there right now for estimating a lot of these things and categorized it and said, how do you get into it? How do you start and how do you finish? And what do these different tools show? None of them work for everything. If you see the column on the left, some of them measure economics, social factors, greenhouse gas reduction, water quality, they all measure different things. So these are at least the things that we can start to look at. Some of them measure at the very small field level. Some of them measure the larger subwatershed, watershed. We could even look at the entire county if we wanted to. So lots of things that we can look at. Much, much better, I think, if we do a pilot project instead of implementing something imposed on us. Let's try to come up with something that would work for us. So that's what's coming up for the future of farmland protection. It won't just be about protecting land from conversion. That was the first start of the program. Very, very important to protect land from conversion. There's no question about that, but beyond that now we're into other more important levels of soil and water protection. And so with that, I think that that pretty much concludes my, oh, I did have one more slide. I'm sorry about that. That's right. What I wanted to show you with this is the public and private entities that have now entered the marketplace to fund this work, which is also worth looking into, because the question about who's going to pay for this and how this is all going to work, and then what they request of the farmer, which is the second aspect. We heard a presentation at Ag Committee from Patrick at Soil and Water, and they're implementing the farmer-led STAR program. So you have the field report on the right, and you can see the things that happen there. Again, it starts with soil sampling and baseline work, and then all the way through in terms of the farmer documenting the work that he's doing, in terms of nutrient management, tillage, all of those different things. Many of the same things are requested of the private companies as well. It's just a question of how they pay and other things. And it's really important for farmers to know what their options are. And so these are the things we want to help, because I've sat in on a few sessions and each of them have their different ways of paying and their different commitment levels. Some are one-year commitments, some are multi-year commitments, some pay in cash, some pay in other forms, some require you to participate over a period of time and buy their products. There's lots of different levels of commitment, and so lots to learn. So we want to be a resource for our farm community, as well as specifically the farmland protection farms in particular, but for all farms in Kane County before entering into this shifting field, because it seems like many, many people are entering this, many entities, private sector, and offering lots of different things. And you have to be, very careful before you sign up, I think. So I think that might be my last slide. Yes, other than congratulations to everyone on 20 years of success, and really looking forward to the upcoming years, broadening our funding, broadening our ability to be able to protect farms and keep them viable in Kane County. So with that, I'm willing to answer any questions, and then we have the resolution of support that would go on to the county board acknowledging the anniversary moving forward.
Mr. Leonard has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hill, I wanted to ask a question or two and make a comment on your presentation. First of all, thank you very much. I thought it was great. My first comment would be, I have been on the Riverboat Funding Committee for a number of years. And as you know, we receive numerous, maybe as many as 50 requests every year. There are usually 4 to 6 people on that committee, where I'm on the committee and I'm on this committee also. I understand your presentation. And what I'm asking is, anybody that might be on that Riverboat Committee before we make allocations this next year, if you could possibly, and I know this would be a bit of a burden to do, but if you could possibly make a 15-minute call to the other 3 or 4 members on the Riverboat Grant Committee, I think it would really help to make sure that we continue to allocate as much money as we can to the farmland preservation program. Essentially, what I'd like you to do is let them know that over this period of time, the $31 million that has been given to farmland protection and preservation, 60%, actually 61% of that money has come from the federal government. and we have contributed the county about 39%. And so you talk about matching funds all the time, and I agree with that. That is a big incentive for us to give additional money. But I think also too, if they realize the total amount of monies that have been received and how high the percentage really is, it's better than 50-50. That would be a plus.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to reach out to individual members and share the presentation and other information as well about moving forward and before we get into the actual application process, because once that starts, it is very hard to talk about all of the detail.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you very much. And I'm sure our chairman, Mr. Kenyon, would be happy to supply the names of the other Riverboat Committee people to you so you can contact them if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
The only last point I wanted to make was at the end of your presentation, you were talking about the public and private entities and the incentives for them to donate money. Would there be any consideration for a matching fund stimulus for them to give more money on top of what they give by presenting a matching fund through Kane County on that?
Absolutely. And I am preparing, well, there are several levels of that. And because the Ad Committee and Riverboat Committee have directed me to continue to fundraise for this with private and other funds, that is part of this moving forward. So I am pursuing that. And so I am pursuing philanthropic funding for this pilot study that I'm referring to. And I'm in the process of that right now. It's very early, so I can't give you a total thumbs up on it, but it is looking good in terms of discussions with the funder there. The second level in terms of bringing in those private dollars as the second layer, absolutely. That's part of the investigation that comes second in terms of helping farmers navigate which level of those carbon markets are best suited for their farm to help bring in funding, and not just private, but public dollars. And I'll give you the example when we move into the RCPP farms next coming up, there are also reserve dollars, public dollars, federal dollars, which are called EQIP dollars, to do things like cover crops and other conservation cropping methods that are reserved for our farms, which will be great to do some of these things. Now, the question will be, and part of what I want to study within this is how much of this money covers the true cost of doing this, and how much improvement, soil improvement and other improvements do we really get, and how much time does it cost the farmer? There's still all of that level of analysis that has to be done, and paying for that is, you know, there's a cost involved, right? And so that's what I'm hoping the grant funds also help cover that cost as well. Same as the water sampling that Jody and her team are doing. All of those things cost money, and there's a question of then what layer of cost is that layer on top of our easements overall? Because in the end, we know that that cost of doing all these things will layer a cost on top of our easements in the end. And so what is that true cost? And then how much of the private sector and other investors will be able to pay for what portion of that? So yes, to the answer to your question, that's all in the works.
Thank you.
Mr. Caius has got a question or a comment, whatever.
Yeah, this is all,
Take
so
your mask off so I can hear you.
I think I'm safe.
Yeah.
Got my second shot the other day too. Yeah, all very interesting. When you're like your next to the last slide had all of the organizations that are contributing money or potentially contributing money. what kind of, what's the sum total? How much are they coughing up for this stuff? Is this just a seed money so far? Just really a small amount, hundreds of
No.
thousands, or is it?
No, they pay, if you farm right now, you can contract with these companies right now. Many of them are working right now with Kane County farmers. They pay anywhere between $25 and $40 an acre, depending on the company and the practice and where you're at in terms of operations and what practices you're going to do. The question is, what do they require of you and moving forward? The other challenge is right now, if you have already done things like cover cropping and other things, many of them don't pay you for what you've done in the past, which is it's almost like you're better off if you haven't done anything, which is kind of unfair. So if you've done lots of conservation work in the past, if it's cover cropping or lower till or any of the things that they buy and sell on the market, then, and some will give credit back to 2 years if you have good records, which is the other thing that's so important with all of this, right? Is record keeping. And so some farmers don't have the records that they require in order to give credit, right? So there's lots to learn from this. In addition, the federal government may be entering into this marketplace as well. So you have these private companies, you have the not-for-profits, you have some people that are doing it just for goodwill, like so for example, the farmer-led, you have the nutrient companies, you have Bayer that has entered into the market. Lots of people entering in, but I would say generally speaking about $25 to $40 an acre. But then if you can layer some of the other programs on top, because you have the Illinois program, the spring cover crop program, and I think they pay $15 an acre, and you layer another program, that's how you can start to bring your total cost down. And then if you start reducing your nutrients because you're doing very targeted nutrients, which is another strategy, right? And then that's how you bring your overall cost down. And that's how it seems to be working for lots of farmers best.
Do these, in
Packaging
total funds that are contributed, are we talking tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, or?
Direct to the farmer, so it's
But
direct.
no, I meant not just to the farmer, but like how much does Bayer have set aside for this, or any of the
Oh, it
others?
seems to be a lot of money, right? It seems to be endless amount of money because all of these major corporations are trying to reach their consumers as well as their corporate stakeholders of all types, right? They're to
Investors.
to show that they're reducing their carbon footprint.
I like the sound,
Right.
I like the sound of endless money.
Correct. And they're willing to spend that money. And I will say, this is not just reflective in the soil category, but this is reflected in the local foods category as well. And we can talk about that another time. I have a great presentation that was done by an ag economics professor from Purdue that talks about the local foods market, or the foods market in general, and how, especially during COVID, but all the changes that have happened because of all of this as well. It influences everything, and how companies are, how corporations, global and US, are adjusting their practices. And this all happens to fall right in the agriculture and food sectors. In so many ways, it falls and it affects even when it comes to delivery practices. And so all of these things can be a source of funding, but they do require adjustments, but adjustments are happening anyway. So if it can be monetized, I think it's a great financial source, but they're at the same time, farmer organizations are cautioning farmers to say, before you sign on the dotted line, take a look at the fine print. And I think that's very wise, because each, there's a caveat with each, right? And so for us as a program, we want to bring the cooperative benefit because we have a group of farms and we have lots of acres that we represent. And we want to have the best scenario. And I think a lot of what I've learned most importantly is to start with good baseline, to know where we are and to know how to collect the data the best way. And also know what's important to measure, right? Because that's a lot of it. The other question, one that I found that was very, very interesting is, and the federal government is requiring this with the applications, has to do with broadband, and not just broadband like you would have for your home, but broadband on the tractors and equipment to measure the level of nutrient for all the equipment that's required for measuring nutrients, and which is a whole layer of sophistication that I don't really even have the answer for yet. I have to talk to the companies, but do all of the fields in Kane County have that level of broadband reach for what's required? Because there's lots of monitoring that's involved, right? So I don't know the answer to that. There's lots. Do all the farmers have access to that equipment, and on and on? I mean, it's one thing to know that it exists, but chances are no, because all of that's very, very expensive. So technology is there. There's a lot of technology available, but does everyone have access to that? No, probably not. So, and a lot of research and work has been done with larger farms and larger corn and soybean farms. But what happens when you're talking about your local food farms, like the ones that Matt just highlighted? The Illinois Specialty Crop Conference did offer some sessions for those farmers, but how do we begin to bring them into the fold and make sure that their soil and water programs are comparable and that they have the comparable offerings? That's all needing to be done work too. So there's so much work that needs to happen, but it's very exciting because I can envision this work being the next 20 years worth of work, right? So, and I must say, again, congratulations to the committee, to the board. I'm in very many places where our program is highlighted and the work that we've done over the 20 years. And it's so wonderful to be where we are as opposed to not having had a program and having to scramble at this point. I'm so glad we're not a county that has to scramble to create a program and start from the ground up. I'm so glad we're not in that point. We're just so further ahead. So congratulations, lots to look forward to moving forward. And it's not just the soil, it's the soil, water, farm viability, all these wonderful things that we get to work with.
Thank you.
Bates, please.
Any more questions or comments?
Bates, please.
Oh, yes.
Chairman.
Oh, I didn't see you were there.
Oh, well, no, I'm hiding in the corner in the loudspeaker. Janice, is there any legislation that we need or that's in the works that we should be helping? Is there anything coming from the state of Illinois on this?
No, not really from the state at all. Most of the activity is at the federal level right now. Yeah.
Should we be helping with that, promoting that?
I think right now most of it is research oriented at the federal level. So not yet.
Okay.
Just kind of wait and see in terms of that. So yeah, I think everybody's just kind of investigating and learning, but thanks for the question. Yeah, nothing yet. We're still waiting. The only thing that we have at the state level right now is we submitted that Rebuild Illinois request for funding, and we're still waiting. I guess those announcements will be in the first half of the year. First, they were saying first quarter. Now they're saying first half. So I'm still keeping my fingers crossed on that. I don't know if we have a competitive proposal. I know that there's lots of, there are lots of requests for economic development funds, but we had a request for $500,000 toward farmland protection funds.
Well, let us know. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah.
Oh, thank you. I thought you'd fallen asleep, Deborah.
Just wanted to say that our program has been handheld and moved along by Janice Hill through these 20 years. And that it has been, we've just had lots of opportunities to be proud of it. I think when this started, someone is showing up at a farmer's doorstep and saying, "Hi, I'm the government and I'm here to help you." And that's usually not something that's well received, but Janice has managed to bring our agricultural community into this program that we're so proud of, and we're all linked arms and making the world a better place, starting right here and starting with Janice sitting in her office, making this program work and flourish and continue. So I'm proud of us, and I'm greedy, so I'm anxious to get that money. Janice, Mr. Kaitis has been sitting in on this and contributing, and he is the chairman of Riverboat this year. So you already have an active audience in him, and we don't get these golden moments all that often. So I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful for the money, and thank you, Janice, for the hard work. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Deborah has been with us since the beginning and a solid supporter of making things better in Kane County.
Mr. Chairman, if I can butt in again, when I was first running and going door to door, I had people who say, "We hear about this program and we're going to give a whole lot of money to these farmers, and then these farmers are going to go and sell their land to Walgreens, and so why should we be giving them money like that?" So I had reason to read the resolutions, the underlying documents right from the beginning, and you can't build a Walgreens. Any objection you have to something that happens, any objection that a citizen has to what farmers are doing with their farmland protection land, is any citizen can go to a court and say this is not appropriate, and the court will look at the documents and agree with them. It is an unending circle of preservation of our land and our air and our water, and it's just all the right stuff, all the stuff we promote.
Thank you. We'll move on to new business. We have a couple resolutions. First is authorize the third round of grant distributions to the approved applicants. So it's somebody like to make that?
Leonard so moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Leonard moves, Sanchez seconds. Is there discussion?
I do have one question.
Okay.
Man, I forgot to ask you. I don't remember seeing it in any of the other applications in your presentations, but are any of them using biodynamic agricultural practices that you're aware of?
I'm not aware specifically that any are.
Okay.
It wasn't a question that we addressed specifically.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Van Kerkhoff has got an answer.
I just wanted to point out, since the resolution before you has fill in the blanks, staff would request that the motion, if the intent is to give out $7,000, $1,000 grants each, that be part of the motion, and then we will adjust the resolution as it moves on through the process.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other point I'd like to make about the resolution is as Matt had brought up, we have two options. I'd like to recommend that we move forward on option A, taking the funds out of Fund 400, as we have with the other ones. So I'd like that amended, the resolution amended to include
So
option
you're
A.
amending that to say that?
Yes.
And I agree as the second also.
First and second are amended, they have to say option A. Is there any more discussion? So we'll have a vote on the,
Brown,
Yes.
Frost, Gobi, Leonard,
Leonard, yes. I think Kopi said yes.
is that Gobi? Thank you, Gobi. Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Kenyon.
we're voting on the motion as amended. Now we have another resolution to recognize celebrating the 20th anniversary of farmland protection. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
Allen moves.
Deborah Allen moves. Mr. Sanchez seconds. Is there discussion on this? All right, we're ready to vote.
Brown,
Yes.
Gobi, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Kenyon.
Yes, aye. Thank you very much. I want to comment on some things I've been reading. The prices for agricultural products are reaching a high point. Soybeans, Steve, what is that, 12-year high? Stephen? Sorry? Soybean prices are at a 12-year high? Soybeans, come.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, corn is up $2. I mean, from the last year now to now, things have got better. And I will say this, the federal government has been very good to farmers. There was going to be a bad year and it turned into be a good year. But we all want to eat. And the commerce, I was reading about we're selling ethanol to China. We're selling soybeans to China, corn. So we're the bread basket. Unless there's any other comments, we'll look for motion to place reports on file.
Leonard, so moves.
Allen seconds. And Mr. Chairman, can I just say that the strength of a country is in the ability to feed its people? So there we are.
We have a motion to place the reports on file. We have call.
Brown,
Yes.
Frost, Gopi, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen.
Allen,
Thank you, Gopi.
You go so fast, you leave us in the dust. I know. It's hard, but and then now we need a motion to adjourn. Seeing no motion to adjourn, we will stay.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves, and Sanchez seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 I knew it was going to be